Hey, you guys. Good evening. Yeah, it's evening right now. Um, so in our Facebook group, we are doing a swap for with clusters. And so I've had some questions about basically like people wanting to know what they are, how do you make them? What are some of the like I don't know requirements or whatever involved with these clusters? And I guess I just wanted to make a video kind of basically describing what they are, what they're used for, how I make them, and just sort of a remake of a couple of videos that I've already done, but more like directly related to the whole cluster thing. Okay. So, um, I thought, I'll just show you some of the clusters that I've made. And, I just kind of started calling them that, I guess they're an embellishment, and they're just, I don't know, I use them for all kinds of different things. And they're a really good way to use up scraps. Although I will say that now that I make them all the time, I have started collecting even more scraps. And so be careful, because what happens is you sort of start thinking about everything you're looking at in terms of, can I use that in a cluster? And so I obviously have amassed quite a collection of things that are useful for clusters. So here's the basics, okay? First of all, um, they're just a little like layered embellishment, okay? That we've all made them, we've all done this lots of times. So let me kind of zoom in here so you guys can see a little bit more directly um, what I do, okay? So these are some clusters that I made recently. I'll just kind of show them to you individually, I guess. Um, Hopefully the autofocus is not on. Let me check. Yeah, it's not. Okay. Um, so I make them in all different sizes, all right, for different reasons, you know. Um, and I'll talk about that here in just a second. So this is just to give you some idea of, what they are, um, and the types of things that you can use. So, and really, as with junk journals in general, there's no rules. They don't have to be a certain size. They don't have to have a certain number of layers. They don't have to have any kind of certain content or anything like that. And I don't pay attention to those things. I just make them. The only thing I guess I do kind of think about are, just I'll talk about some of the like specifics as I'm making some with you guys today. But basically all I'm thinking about is if I can see an idea of whatever it is in each layer. I just try not to use something in the cluster that you're never going to see. So I try to make sure that you can at least see part of whatever it is that I've included. So, they're gradually kind of getting smaller, right? So this one's pretty big. This could be used for lots of different things, and I'll show you a couple things. So these are getting just a little bit smaller. And, as I make a lot of mini junk journals, and so I have a tendency to use a lot of the really small ones. And then, the smallest of which usually I'll make into like a paper clip. Okay. So these are just, this is just a standard sort of small-ish paper clip, right? I don't generally use the big giant ones. So basically, I'll make the clusters with however many layers I'm going to use. and then I hold them together with one staple. And the idea behind just using one staple is that, first of all, I don't want them to get too thick. If I start using glue, then they're going to start getting too thick. And they're also going to take too much time to create. And they're going to, they also will stop being layered so much, okay? They'll start to become little compositions that are like little layouts, I guess. And I'm not looking to do that. I want them to just be very spontaneous, okay? And so if I limit myself to that one staple, then I'm sort of forced to stay within those parameters, you know? And not only a staple, but a tiny staple with the tiny attacher. So that's, you know, like all of these are held together with one staple, you know. So as I'm making them, I'm keeping that in my head. So those are some clusters that I've made. These are, you know, generally going to be like a sort of vintage style because that's the kind of, you know, journal that I'm usually making. The whole layering thing just really jives with a vintage style. So anyway, so what do you use them for? Well, I use them on tags. Generally, if I'm using them on like a paper tag, they're not going to be as thick. Okay, I'm going to try to keep them a little bit thinner, right? So that I can insert them in pockets and things like that. You know, there's still just as many layers usually, but you know, as far as some of the layers that the items that I use in the layering, those things generally aren't as thick. Like, you know, I don't use like a thick lace and that kind of stuff. Or I won't use like buttons or, you know, big heavy paper flowers, you know, not heavy, but thick paper flowers. This one I did because this one I will probably wind up using on the cover of a journal. So it won't matter, like, you know, how thick it is. So, but you know, I mean, it's okay. This isn't too thick. You know, I just don't want to use 10 or 12 or a dozen or so or more of, you know, like a thick type of tag like this in a journal because my book's going to wind up being gigantic. So, you know, I just try to be aware of that. Here's one that's actually really thick. You know, it's got lots and lots of layers. And this will probably wind up either like on the inside front cover of a journal. I'll show you that in a second, or on the actual cover on the front. So these are just some tags that have clusters on them. Okay. You know, a couple other ways that you can use them. Well, so this is how I've used one on the front of a journal, you know. And sometimes I'll make that into like a tuck spot where I'll only glue like two sides of it down and then I'll insert like a little tag in there or something. So let me just find, I know I used a cluster in this book somewhere. Oh, maybe I didn't. Maybe I didn't, only on the cover of that one. Here's one that I used on the inside of this journal. Sorry, the camera is kind of back a little bit on my desk, and I'm sorry I keep coming out of frame. But so I've just attached it with a couple of staples on the edge of this paper, and you know, it's a tuck spot. So, you know, they're just really handy for that kind of thing. On the back of this one, I attached it to, you know, on just two sides and then actually glued it onto a larger card. And so it's like a tuck spot. You know, if I had not, you know, attached it all the way right here, that could have been another tuck spot. So, you know, I guess I didn't think about that at the time. But, you know, that's just a couple ways that you can use them. So, you know, and like I said, you can make them any size you want. They can have as many layers as you want. You can make them 20 layers if you want to. And you can do whatever you want. Like, you don't have to use one staple. That's just a limitation that I put on myself, so that I keep them usable for just about any application, you know. Um, so I just kind of wanted to do that. I just kind of wanted to show those to you guys really quick because, um, you know, I just don't want anybody to be scared of them, or to be, well, not scared, but, you know, I don't want anybody to be like, you know, intimidated by the whole idea, because, you know, really they're just fun to make. Um, and everybody has different stuff that they use, and, you know, that's part of the fun. So, anyway, so I thought I would just kind of, you know, run through a few and make a few on camera, um, just to kind of give you an idea of my thought processes. Um, just one second. Okay. All right. I had to text Steven back. Okay. So I basically, like, I have this tray. Okay. This tray is full of, let me zoom the camera back out a little. So this tray is basically all like bases. Okay. This is all stuff that I would like to use as like foundation pieces for journals. Okay. Some stuff that I've added to it recently, like those some of those negatives from like an ephemera haul that I had. There's some scrapbook papers that, you know, I've cut up recently that I thought, you know, I could tear this in half and use this as a base. I just, you know, I like the imagery. This is like a, here, I'm going to set this down. So I have a whole bunch of these postage stamps that are on paper, you know, where someone has just torn it off of the envelope, and they left the cancel on there too. So I really like that. And so these would be good to use as bases too. Some of the old ephemera that came out of that box that I got in the mail not too long ago. Some of those, you know, like electric bills, you know, receipts. And if this stuff is really thin, then, you know, I would probably wind up layering it on something a little bit more substantial, a little bit firmer. So, what else is in here? There's some like playing card boxes. Yeah, even like the ends of them, that kind of stuff. I basically, you know, I think about, can I use that in a cluster before I get rid of anything? These are just some pieces. These what I would use for like smaller clusters, you know. You know, these are off of those like and whatever her name is. I can't remember her name ever. Anyway, I just cut up a bunch of pieces out of a kit that I had. These are some old matchbook covers. Pieces of book pages, like heavy like book pages. Other like pieces that came out of scrapbook paper, like cardstock scrapbook paper. These are, you know, like the cut apart pages. And then, you know, there's like these Tim Holtz ephemera packs, and you get, you know, a whole bunch of these in there. So I have those. Sometimes I'll use like a little tag, just like a little tiny one, or like a little, these are like some science like flashcards. So, I mean, you kind of get the idea. Oh, like these little guys, these little punched out shapes, you know, and then, you know, like flags, things like these are great to use as bases, especially like for paper clip clusters, you know, little flags and stuff like that that you've cut out. So, and then, you know, there's the tray, which is basically just like all of these random elements, you know, little ration stamps, little cut up pieces of paper of flowers, and there's one of my hairs. Some of those little teeny merchandise tags. You know, these came off of some bridge scorecards or tally sheets or tally cards. You know, just all kinds of random things. And you know, I'll cut up things that I print out and, you know, cut out little elements, stuff like that. Recently, I decoupaged a whole bunch of really old advertising from magazines onto, you know, just a piece of paper and just coated it with some Mod Podge just to, you know, make it a little bit more durable because it's very fragile and brittle. So I just have a bunch of those cut up. These are ones that I had scanned and printed off and then cut them into smaller pieces. So, so those, and then sometimes I'll use paper flowers actually in the layers when I'm making the clusters, and also little pieces of doily, like coffee stained doily, or, you know, the metallic ones or whatever. So just to add another layer. Any kind of fabric, any kind of ribbon, lace, you know, any of that kind of stuff, like anything basically that's included in that junk journal salad or anything else. I mean, really, you can seriously use anything. I print out little like words and tear them up, you know, use my stamps and like I have these little stamps that just say cute little things, you know, and so I just stamp them out and then tear them apart. They look really cool if you just tear them apart rather than cutting them. And I stamped obviously on those. Postage stamps, and then, you know, of course, our little, you know, stamped images that are cut out using like punches, you know, just different little stamped images, you know. So I love that little push pin. Anyway, so, and then words, like any kind of words that, you know, you find you can cut out of magazines or whatever. So yeah, I thought I would just, you know, put together a few of these. And I usually do have this much stuff on my desk when I'm doing this. If you watch my live stream or you know, anything like that where I've been making these clusters, you'll see like I definitely have I like to have a lot to choose from. So I'm just pulling out some flowers that I might use. And then I try to keep my little box of words open. And then usually, so I'll make these clusters, and then usually what I'll do is I'll make them up to the point where I would add like a button or some other kind of like a paper flower embellishment. I'll make them all up to that point, and then I'll put all this stuff away, and then I'll come back and add a button or add some thicker like element if I feel like it needs it, you know, after I get them all layered together. So where I'm holding this with my thumb, where my thumb is where I'm going to put my staple. Okay, so that kind of explains why I'm doing what I'm doing. Anyway, so where my thumb is where I'm going to staple. So I basically just, you know, just kind of go in a circle almost, you know, of the trays. And then when I feel like it's enough, I'll staple it and it's done. So when it gets to this point, I usually just start stacking them up, and then then later on I'll come back and I'll add like a button or a flower or something. So there's that one. You know, so generally I'm going to work from large to small, okay? I'm really liking these, so I'm going to continue on that track. And I really love the matchbook covers. So I'm just kind of offsetting it a little bit, you know, and I want you to be able to tell that that's a matchbook cover still. so I don't want to, you know, cover it up. I'll just grab random pieces of paper, a stamp. This is like a little flower from some scrapbook paper that I inked around the edges. And then I cut out all of these little faces, all these little like women. I know you guys need me to zoom in. Sorry. So I'm just layering them up, you know. And, you know, sometimes I'll say, oh, you know, I'd really like to see something sparkly in there. So I'll just go back and add something sparkly at, you know, at some point. And everything is held together with a staple. Let's see. So I'll take postcards sometimes. I'll take like a, you know, a pretty postcard and I'll just tear it apart. This part is kind of falling off, so I'm just going to go ahead and remove it, sort of square it up a little bit. And then I'll go into this one with the idea that this is going to be like used as a tuck spot at some point. So, you know, yeah, I'm covering up a lot of this, but, you know, you can still see the roses on there. You'll still get the idea, you know. Just trying not to think about it too much as I'm layering. I'm really just, you know, grabbing stuff. And if I don't like it, I can take it off. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. You can rearrange things if you want to. You know, it's just a matter of aesthetics. You know, what do you like? Do you like the way it feels, or do you feel like you know, it needs more or it needs less? If it needs less, take something out. You know, I love these paper butterflies. So, and then staple it together. So, I mean, they do go pretty quick. And before I know it, like I'll have 50 clusters made. I generally try to use a piece of fabric in each one, or some kind of lace or something. I didn't on this one, but you know, or you know, sometimes even two. I'll use a couple pieces, but I generally will try to make sure that one staple is going to hold it all together, you know. So I'll just run through just a few more here. And where's that advertising? So I want to use some of this advertising. I just think it's so cool. And I just basically, instead of lining things up, I just kind of tip it a little bit. I'll just tip it to the side a tiny bit. And even just a plain white piece of paper, you know, I'll layer that in there just to add texture or, you know, interest. So here's another, yeah, I'm not going to use that. It's getting too thick. So let's grab this little piece of like a, you know, tape measure or ruler and a little tag. And then I've got to get postage in there somehow. I need more postage. So there. And then staple it together. So how many layers is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 layers. Yeah. And, you know, sometimes I'll do a longer piece, you know, and then this would be great to use like on a long pocket page or something, you know. But even still, I'm still just going to use one staple to hold it together, you know. Later on, like, you know, when I decide where I'm going to use it, I may wind up, you know, tacking it down a little bit better or a little bit differently, you know, a little bit more. So this is like a big stamp. I'm actually going to ink this around the edges And sometimes, you know, just inking something just helps it kind of stand out a little bit better. So that's going right there. And I kind of, you know, I didn't center it. I'm just going to attach it like on the corner. See, add a little bit more color in here. And it's starting to get a little bit thick, and mainly that's because of the lace, you know. So I'm just going to be careful how many more layers I add on here. Sorry, I know that's out of frame, but and then I'm just going to add this butterfly and staple it together. Okay, so that's all held together with one staple. So it's, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 layers. So, and this one I probably would, you know, ink the edges of that first layer too. And when it comes time to actually use this on something, you know, there's no reason that you couldn't add another layer on the back of this if you needed to, if you wanted to make it like a whole pocket or something or whatever. And then you know, I could come back and attach some paper flowers on the front of it, and maybe a button. I mean, you could even just add like a huge flower somewhere if you want to, or you know, just go crazy with colors. And yeah, I mean, you can do whatever you want. There's not, I guess that's what I'm trying to get across. It's like, just play around and, you know, see what you like. And you know what? If you don't absolutely love it, throw it away. It's not a big deal. Or tear it apart, you know, if you don't think you're ever going to use it, you know. But I think that the more you do it, the more you make, the easier it gets and the more comfortable you are. And I think that as long as you're not worrying about what other people are going to think about your clusters or anything that you do, then I think you're going to be a lot happier with it. You have to do this stuff for yourself, you know, first and foremost, like and I guarantee that if you can change that in your head about why you're making things or how you're making them or what they look like or whatever, if you just start doing that for yourself, only you, then that's going to come through in your work. Other people are going to see it and they're going to like it a lot more. And I just feel like that's really true with any kind of artistic expression or whatever. Just do it for yourself and the rest of it will just fall into place. Otherwise, it becomes orchestrated and tight and tense, and that feeling comes through in your work. So just let go. And you know, I loved I can't remember what her name was in our Facebook group. I'll put a link to her video on this one though. She makes a video where, and I hate that I can't remember her name right now, but she makes a video just trying to not think about it. You know, she's talking about overthinking, and she uses making clusters as like an exercise to kind of get past overthinking when she's creating something. And so these are really actually a really good kind of exercise in that, you know. And she just starts basically just putting things together, and if she starts moving things around or thinking about it too much, she stops herself and, you know, she's like, no, don't think about it. Just do it. Just make it. Just put it together, kind of however it lands, you know. And really, I feel like that is, it's a good exercise, you know. I mean, obviously, we want to have some kind of, you know, aesthetic to our work. We do, which is good, you know. But when you start overthinking things, it can be very crippling, and I'm guilty of it too. Like, I have the same problem. So anyway, I've just made a lot of these things now, and like most of them I don't even remember making. You know, honestly, like I don't even remember. So I just go, oh, I like that one. You know, later on when I see them in the box, I have a whole drawer full of them. So anyway, I hope that that kind of helps. I hope that clears up, you know, some of your questions and people's curiosity too about what this whole cluster thing is. And I hope that you make some. I do, because they're very, very useful. And they're, like I said, a great way to use up scraps. If you make these snippet rolls, um, you know, these are great to use on clusters too. The only thing I would say is that these can have a tendency to get kind of thick. So, you know, if you use these as an element in your clusters, you know, just watch for that. But they would be great to use on clusters that you would be using like on the cover of a journal or something like that. So anyway, um, yeah, so that's about, you know, what I wanted to get across, and hopefully is helpful. So anyway, I love you guys, and excited to, you know, put together our swap and get that going, and hopefully you guys have fun with it. So, but anyway, I will talk to you again soon. I'm streaming tomorrow, which is Sunday, at 4 p.m., which I realize it's Easter, and I kept forgetting that it's Easter, but I'm just gonna do it anyways, you know. I mean, if why not, you know? Anyway, I'll talk to you soon. Okay, love you. Bye.